I think at that point, you're not trying to like change him and just go at him and say like, this, you know, you're a monster.
Welcome to our midweek recording for our vlog, where we sit and we talk about things that we've been thinking about. Today we're gonna share 5 ways that we deal with hate comments. And a little bit of background here. We've gotten quite a bit of hate comments since we started YouTube almost 4 years ago. A lot of people disagree with either our parenting style,
our personalities,
our choices, or things that we've done. We've had to learn to deal with this. And one of the #1 compliments we've gotten from people is, wow, I can't believe how you deal with people. I could never do that. And I want to talk about this today specifically because I noticed as I was looking at this list, the same way we deal with hate comments, it actually impacts how we deal with all people, including our own family members.
The first point is don't assume you know who the trolls are.
It's really easy when we see a comment that doesn't agree with our opinion or isn't stated in what feels like the most respectful way to assume that someone is just trying to make our life miserable or just trying to cause trouble. But I think it's pretty dangerous to assume other people's motives, especially people like the online community is a mix of, I mean, how many different cultures, thousands, possibly millions of cultures, when you take into account different nationalities and then the way people were raised and the people use language and the way things are translated. So to assume, I mean, a troll, like in internet lingo, my understanding is it's a pretty specific thing. It's someone who is actually trying to make someone else's life difficult, or like ruin a conversation, or just get a rise out of someone. Like I said, when we see a comment that we disagree with, it's easy to assume, oh, this person is just trying to piss me off. But I think it's more productive and healthy for us when we kind of assume that we don't know what their motive is, or maybe we assume the best motive. So for every one of these points, we're going to translate like how we would also have learned about this in regards to parenting. But with parenting, what's helpful for me is to assume that the kids aren't trolling me. Like, especially like Rainier, our 3-year-old.
Yeah.
He will say like, mama, mama, mama. And I notice, I don't know why it bugs me more than you sometimes, but I'm like, it feels like, are you just trying to like drive me nuts? Are you just trolling my life?
20 or 30 times until I respond.
Yeah. But I have found it safer or better to always give the kids the benefit of the doubt and assume that we don't know their motives. Because the second we start to go down this route of, why are you trying to just make my life more difficult? Or why aren't you respecting me? Like, why are you trying to purposefully disrespect me? Or I know for like older kids, there's more subtle language that's used sometimes, like rebellion. Like, oh, you're rebelling. As if the only reason why you're doing what you're doing is to try and buck my authority. Now, I think sometimes that's actually true. But a lot of times, kids are really seeking for something that's actually good and valuable. And yeah, it's inconvenient for us.
Well, even if they are trying to buck your authority, you don't have to necessarily attach a wrongful motive to that, even.
Yes, that doesn't just make them a troll. I mean, a troll, in a way, it's kind of a derogatory phrase. I think a way of categorizing people and almost delegitimizing their opinion.
Our second point is lose the energy. This has been super helpful for me in not ruining my day. So I'll get a comment that pisses me off right away. I'm just like, who does this person think they are? They don't know me. And I have found myself responding right away, and it's not usually the most helpful response to me, or for this other person or anyone else who would see it, oftentimes. So if I sense that my energy is really, really high, I try to make it a practice of walking away until I feel that energy come down. And then I might re-engage. A lot of times I don't even feel the need to re-engage because the energy's gone. Or I'll re-engage with, I think, a much more constructive message for the person or anyone else who is going to see it.
And I think losing the energy works in what you're describing of like an inside way, but it also works in how you communicate. Because someone could write a comment and they could be like, you guys suck. I mean, I noticed in our latest birth control video, someone went off on how men should grow a pair and not worry about the pain and should, suck it up and stop being a bunch of babies when it comes to vasectomies and birth control. And I could like counter that energy. I could like bring back another argument and be like, no, men are strong and this is women suck. I could like just, and then that just escalates the situation. Or I can totally diffuse it by and what I wrote in this particular case was something like, oh, our particular issue didn't have to do with the pain of a vasectomy. It has to do with a philosophy of having children or not. And I just kind of kept it matter of fact, even though I felt like there was a lot of emotional chargedness on the other side.
Yeah, and I've seen you, a lot of times, you'll ask a question to try to clarify, is this what you mean? But it's in a way that's trying to draw out the person's actual meaning versus just matching their energy.
Now with kids,
it's a lot harder to do.
I think it's much more difficult.
Well, I think it's harder to turn it off and walk away than online.
But I've learned that when I have something to say to the kids, a lot of times what naturally comes with me is this like almost like dominance or morality. Like I need to show that I'm the boss and I need to show that your decision was stupid. And it comes across in my tone of voice. And I used to just think like, well, that's just what parents do. Like that's what our job is. But now I actually don't think that. I think we can lose the authority, lose the shame, and just say, hey, when you did that, it really made it inconvenient for me. And I would like really appreciate it if you don't do that. Even in that tone of voice. Or to say, hey, like I noticed that when you don't write things on the calendar, you miss appointments. And I think that might be good for you to think about this because I care about you. Like, just like really matter of factly, without like all this energy of like, what were you thinking? This is the third time. There's like tone of voice, there's emotion involved, there's pain.
And I think it helps me. I mean, I had this situation today with one of our kids that started telling me these things, and in my mind, I'm like, I found myself getting defensive in my mind. And then the second thing I remember thinking was, they don't know anything. I mean, they don't understand where I'm coming from. They don't understand what it's like to be me. They only understand what it's like to be them, which actually helps me not come across in a way like, because I think I could easily just say, well, you don't know anything. You're 16 and I'm 39, so you don't know. And there's truth to that, but it's not helpful to them or to me or the situation to point that out. But it is helpful for me to remember that and to say, like, of course they don't know, and give them some grace in those moments of saying, okay, yeah, it sucks that they said that, but they said it because they don't know.
Because I think there's like these studies done about how people don't learn well under stress, and their performance actually goes down usually. So once we introduce more stress in a situation or perpetuate stress, they almost stop listening, like kids, or even comments on YouTube. Like it's just a matter now they're just trying to win. Or with their kids, they're just trying to get us off their back. So they'll nod and smile or say whatever they need to say just to diffuse the energy. But they're not learning at that point. So if we really want them to listen, if we really want them to learn, it serves everyone if we can wait till the energy's gone.
Our third point is to assume we all want the same thing.
When I see people who are like bashing our method of parenting or disagreeing, it's easy for me to think like, well, I want what's best for my kids and you hate my kids. Or I want what's best for me and the world and you hate the world, or something like that. When really, I've just noticed, even if I'm wrong, it's so much more beneficial to just assume, hey, these people actually want what's best for us and the world also.
And their kids and our kids.
Yeah, even if we don't agree exactly on what that is, like, I'm fine with that. Sometimes I think, oh, we're so different. Like, I care and you don't care. And I just haven't found that to be true with people. I know people have accused me of that sometimes. Like, just because I disagree, they're like, oh, you're disrespectful. I'm like, wait, what? Just because I don't hold the same opinion as you, I'm disrespectful? And I don't like it when I'm put in that category. And I don't think other people do either. So, to translate that to parenting, I guess it's like the same thing. I mean, it's so easy to assume that our kids don't care about learning, they don't care about us, they don't care about respect, they don't care about how clean the house is. I think they actually do care about a lot of those things. They just have different priorities.
And they may not care in the same exact way, which doesn't mean they don't care.
Which I don't think it's their job to.
Yeah.
A radical difference if I approach a kid assuming that they don't care. Like, I mean, let's take another example. I mean, this one is true of myself, and I think we talked about this on the podcast recently, where I used to beat up my brother a lot. And the way my dad would talk to me, I would get confused because it almost felt like I didn't care about my brother, but I did care about my brother. I just didn't know how to treat him well because I think I felt threatened and less loved and more like competitive in certain ways. So I didn't like how I was treating him. Like, I wanted to change and stop, but I didn't know how. And I wish that I had more tools that I was given as a young child. And that's what helps me when I'm looking at my kids. If one's mistreating the other, I could come down really hard, be like, you suck, like, you don't care about him, like, you need to love him more. But that's not helpful. Like, instead of assuming, oh, you really want to love your brothers and sisters, but you don't know how, or there's something else that you're struggling with that's hard for you, and I want to, as an older person with more experience, help you explore those other angles and understand you.
Yeah, and once you understand, so in your case, if your parents were to have understood, oh, you're dealing with jealousy or not feeling special enough or loved enough, I could stop and think, oh, I have felt those things. Like, I am no different from you.
We're the same.
We're the same, yeah. It's just manifesting itself in different situations.
Yeah.
Then it's when you can see yourself in your kid, or in a troll for that matter. I think at that point, you're not trying to like change him and just go at him and say like, this, you're a monster. You then can see yourself in them, and I think it really helps to understand and love them. Our fourth point is assume people don't understand us and they're afraid of change.
This is kind of like a combo one. I kind of snuck two in one. We live in a country, and even having access to the internet, where we can see people with so many different cultures. And like, I remember specifically when we were hiking the Appalachian Trail, people would assume like we don't care about our kids because we're doing this hard, difficult thing. I could just come back and be like, you're an idiot, you don't know what you're talking about. But instead of doing that, if I assume they don't understand us, and there are people out there who do take their kids out in extreme temperatures and they don't care about what they feel or think. A lot of times if people hear just a part of a story, they just make an assumption. But maybe they do want to understand, even though it is hard for people to change. That if you're patient, if you listen to people, and if you say, well, maybe asking questions, I don't exactly know where you would go from there.
It probably depends on the case.
Yeah.
But some people you should just be like, okay, I'm going to walk away from this situation because saying anything right now isn't going to help the situation or help you understand or
But if it is a real conversation
Yeah.
and you're dialoguing,
Yeah.
then to say, well, actually, we do care about safety and we do care about education and we do care about our kids' comfort. But the reason why we go outside in some of these more extreme adventures is because we've seen that they actually can get educated in a different way. They look at comfort differently and they become more responsible adults or whatever the example is. You know, still treating the person's opinion with respect.
You can never force change on anyone. Like, that is something that someone's own internal free will has to decide for themselves. And because I know that, I try, I don't always succeed, but I try not to change someone with my words or actions if I know they're just like, no. I mean, I try to be sensitive and discerning to what's going on. Like, what are the words that they're saying? It's hard through the internet, like, to figure that out. But with our kids, I think I definitely notice a posture of, I'm not listening to you. Sometimes I'll just keep talking and not notice, or maybe I notice, but I'm just ignoring the signs that they don't want to change right now, or at least they don't want to change the way I want them to change. And that's another thing too, because sometimes people are changing in ways that we don't understand or can't even see. And I want to leave a respectful room for that with people.
And it's very normal anytime you encounter a narrative or a lifestyle that's different from yours to assume or feel that it's wrong or feel that it's not as good.
Yeah.
Or to feel threatened by it.
Because you're trying to, like, figure it out,
Trying
or
to make sense of things.
make sense of your world with this other person's world.
So when people kind of make statements online, like leave hate comments in that vein, I like to assume that it's hard for them, but even applaud them for having the courage to stick with it and to watch something that might feel scary for them to watch. I mean, a lot of people, they watch the type of news and the type of shows and hang out in the types of clubs that just reinforce the beliefs they already have. So I've heard from so many people that have watched our channel, they said at first, like, they didn't like something. Like, they were skeptical, or they felt like they knew what we were up to, or they felt we were dangerous.
Yeah.
But then after they watched us for a while, they started to get a different picture. And I think part of that is because it just takes a while for people to be exposed to new ways of living.
Our fifth and last point is to assume we don't know other people's stories.
Sometimes people leave comments that are based upon the truth of their experience. While it might not necessarily be true about us, it doesn't make what they're saying actually a hateful comment or something that we can disregard as untrue. It just is one angle. And to know that people come from so many different angles. I mean, I think I was really naive because I grew up in a pretty narrow subculture of, you know, I don't know whether you call it evangelicalism or white privilege or American or first world, that there was a lot of things I haven't dealt with. And when people would attack me, I would almost just like discount them, when in a way I've learned to be a better listener and say like, oh, there's a truth coming across that maybe this person hasn't been heard, and maybe they've been hurt by a father that was overbearing or controlling with their kids. You know, it's just kind of, it might be coming out in not the most convenient way for me. Mm-hmm. But it's been helpful for me to assume I don't know their story.
So to translate that to my kids, each of my kids is very different. They perceive the world in all very different ways, and they all have different experiences. Even though they live in the same house and have the same parents, it's different with each and every one of them. And I like to approach them with more of a questioning mind of, oh, I don't know, what you're feeling, what you're thinking, how you're perceiving this. And so I want to ask questions to try to understand them instead of just think, oh no, I understand you through my lens, which is only one lens. Or even, I think sometimes in parenting, you can have a child that's really easy or easier than your other kids. And so you then kind of pit the kids against each other and say, well, why can't you be more like this one? When like that kid, the other kid shouldn't be more like that kid. They're completely different in so many ways.
Okay, we do have one final bonus thought, because these are ways that we process hate comments or comments that seem disagreeable to us, both on YouTube and with kids. But there is a question still left of, okay, let's say we say that all comments are valid. Does that mean we spend our life dealing with difficult people that are potentially abusive and dangerous or harmful for us? And I would say no. So we've walked you through how we see other people's viewpoint, but that doesn't mean that we have to engage with everybody on the internet, all the comments, continue to answer or dialogue, or even our kids. And the final bonus kind of question that I like to ask is this person actually interested in dialogue? Because if they are, then I have a lot more energy to try and respond and try and listen, because I might play a further part in their story. But sometimes people say they are and they're not, or sometimes people flat out, you can just tell, or it seems like you at least have to make an assumption that they're not, because they're saying the same thing again and again. They're not listening to you. They're not in a posture where it seems evident that my voice matters. So then I make the choice to not participate in, I wouldn't even call it a conversation maybe, but I won't participate in that dialogue anymore. And I think that's totally okay. But in doing so, I don't have to say, oh, you're a troll, you suck. I can just say, I'm choosing not to participate in this right now. And I can just be done for any reason. Like, we're all allowed to do that. There you have it. Was this helpful? Was this interesting? What stands out to you? And the question that we would leave you with is there something that you have found in dealing with trolls or hate comments, either online or just conversationally at home with your family, that you found helpful that we didn't mention? You can leave that in the comments below. That's it. We'll see you guys next time.